The first warnings came softly, whispers in data, a creeping line on a graph. By the time the world listened, the fever had already taken hold. For decades, scientists scribbled warnings on chalkboards, their voices buried beneath the roar of industry. Politicians haggled over short-term gains while the planet's thermostat climbed. Children flooded the streets, their signs raised like shields. There is no planet B. Yet here we are. The storm is no longer distant. It rattles our windows, floods our homes, scorches our fields. This is no longer a future to prevent. It is a present to endure. And still, students sit in classrooms, learning about everything but the forces reshaping their future. To fight this crisis, we must face it. To survive it, we must understand it, deeply, urgently, without illusion. So we must ask, what's the purpose of education, and what's the most important lesson one should learn? These are simple questions with no single right answer, and perspectives certainly vary. As a pragmatist, I'd argue that education is an ongoing process of filling a mental toolbox with skills and insights applicable to every aspect of life. It's about acquiring practical knowledge and abilities that serve you continuously. While there's no universal consensus on the most important life lesson, I believe it boils down to two key ideas: learning to distinguish wants from needs and understanding how to put things into context. Recognizing how choices, events, and ideas fit into the bigger picture, be it of life, society, or the world, is a truly crucial skill. Building on the idea of education as a toolbox, we should also recognize that money is just another tool, one you either master or let master you. It's a means to an end, not the end itself. Yet in the modern world, money is a necessary evil, fraught with paradoxes in how it shapes human behavior. Why is money necessary? It facilitates exchange and trade. Money is a universal medium of exchange, solving the inefficiencies of barter. Imagine trading carpentry skills for bread. The trade fails when the baker doesn't want a shelf built. Money enables complex economies and specialization. It stores value. Money lets you save the product of your labor for future use, rather than forcing immediate consumption. It measures value. As a unit of account, money provides a common standard for pricing goods and services, simplifying economic decisions. Is money evil? The notion that money is evil is often misunderstood. Money itself is neutral. The real issue lies in how people use it. Greed, corruption, and inequality stem from human choices, not from currency itself. In the early 1960s, John F. Kennedy popularized the phrase, "A rising tide lifts all boats," to encapsulate his administration's economic philosophy. This metaphor suggested that broad economic growth would benefit everyone, from the wealthiest to the poorest, just as rising water in a harbor lifts all vessels, big and small. But context matters. During JFK's presidency, America was the unrivaled global superpower, both economically and militarily. Many remember the 1950s and early 1960s through rose-colored glasses, a time when a high school graduate could land a manufacturing job that paid enough to buy a home and support a family. So, how was that possible? The U.S. held a unique position as the world's sole economic superpower in the 1950s and early 1960s, a stark contrast to today. This dominance arose from two primary factors. Post-war advantage. While World War II devastated most major economies, Germany, Japan, Italy, Britain, the USSR, and China, the U.S. emerged virtually unscathed. With its industrial base intact, America had a near monopoly on supplying consumer goods to a world that was focused on rebuilding. The baby boom demographic dividend, 1946 to 1964. A nation's economic strength hinges on its demographic structure, the age distribution that shapes consumption, labor supply, and investment. Think of it in terms of life's economic seasons. Under 18, dependents net consumers of resources, education, healthcare, but not yet workforce contributors. 18 to 45, young adults and parents. This is a high consumption phase, buying homes, raising families, and often accumulating debt. They drive demand but tend to save little. 45 to 65, peak earners and savers, the economy's backbone. These individuals are typically the highest earners, major taxpayers, and primary investors, fueling significant economic growth. 65 plus, retirees, their spending shifts towards healthcare and leisure. No longer working, they draw on pensions and constrain public budgets if their demographic share becomes too large. During the post-war boom, the U.S. experienced ideal demographic conditions for economic expansion. Thanks to the baby boom, there was a rising share of peak earners and minimal retiree drag, providing a powerful tailwind for growth. Donald Trump's Liberation Day tariffs, announced on April 2, 2025, stem from a protectionist economic philosophy that prioritizes American jobs and domestic manufacturing over free trade principles. The underlying rationale, echoing Trump's broader trade agenda, is that import tariffs will revive a mid-20th century domestic manufacturing boom, akin to the 1950s and early 1960s. However, this outcome is improbable for two key reasons. America no longer has a near-global monopoly on supplying consumer goods as it did in the post-war era. Today, nations like Germany, Japan, China, Italy, and the UK are major producers of consumer goods, creating a far more competitive landscape. America's demographic and economic structure has fundamentally shifted since the 1950s and early 1960s, under leaders like JFK, making a return to that industrial model unrealistic. The Trump taco trade is a sarcastic acronym coined by Financial Times analyst Robert Armstrong. It stands for Trump always chickens out, a market-driven critique suggesting a recurring pattern in Trump's trade policy, aggressive tariff threats followed by de-escalation. This dynamic has allowed markets to anticipate and recover from trade shocks. From Trump's perspective, however, this isn't chickening out, but rather a calculated negotiation tactic, leveraging unpredictability to pressure opponents before settling on more favorable terms. Remember how Donald Trump popularized the phrase, "drain the swamp," during his 2016 presidential campaign? While politicians like Ronald Reagan and Nancy Pelosi had used it before, Trump made it his signature slogan. The message was simple yet powerful. He vowed to clean up Washington, D.C., tapping into widespread frustration with a government many saw as corrupt and rigged. But here's the irony. Fast forward to his Liberation Day tariffs, announced on April 2, 2025. Though these tariffs were pitched as a way to revive American manufacturing, they may actually open new loopholes for lawmakers to profit, effectively refilling the very swamp Trump promised to drain. The Boy Scouts Wilderness Survival Merit Badge teaches kids essential skills for surviving in the wilderness if they become lost, injured, or separated from their group. It's more than just starting a fire. It's a comprehensive program covering prevention, preparation, and the right mindset to stay safe. In a survival situation, the line between wants, comforts, luxuries, and needs, essentials for immediate safety and survival, becomes starkly clear. This merit badge forces kids to confront that distinction, helping them prioritize what truly matters when their life depends on it. The Hug a Tree and Survive elementary school program has a poignant origin rooted in tragedy. It was developed in San Diego following the heartbreaking death of 9-year-old Jimmy Beveridge. In February 1981, Jimmy was camping with his family on Palomar Mountain when he wandered off a nature trail and disappeared. A massive search effort, the largest in San Diego County's history at the time, was launched, involving law enforcement, volunteers, Marines, and search dogs. Tragically, 5 days later, Jimmy's body was found curled beside a tree in a ravine, 2 miles from the campsite. He had succumbed to hypothermia. The loss deeply affected the search team, including of Taylor, a U.S. Border Patrol tracker with 31 years of experience, and Tom Jacobs, a writer and photographer. For Taylor, it was the first time he had failed to find a missing child alive. Determined to prevent future tragedies, Taylor and Jacobs, along with Jackie Heat and Dorothy Taylor, Ab's wife, created an educational program. Its core message was simple yet life-saving. If you're lost, stay put, hug a tree, until help arrives. This advice combats panic, prevents children from wandering further, and provides some shelter from the elements. The Rule of Threes is a guideline for prioritizing immediate survival needs based on how long a person can typically endure without essential resources. 3 minutes without air, or in icy water/severe bleeding, the most urgent threat. Oxygen deprivation from drowning, choking, or major blood loss requires immediate action. 3 hours without shelter in harsh conditions, extreme heat or cold can quickly lead to fatal hypothermia or heat stroke. Securing protection from the elements is critical. 3 days without water, dehydration rapidly impairs physical and cognitive function. While exact survival time varies, finding water is a top priority after addressing exposure. 3 weeks without food, though essential for long-term energy, starvation progresses much slower. Food becomes a secondary concern once shelter and water are secured. This hierarchy helps focus on the most life-threatening risks first in a survival scenario. How stuff hurts the planet. Materialism, the endless human craving for more, fuels climate change in a big way. Every time we chase the latest phone, trendiest clothes, or a bigger car, companies ramp up production to meet our insatiable demand. This cycle follows a take, make, dispose model. We extract Earth's resources, turn them into products, and then dump them in landfills. It's the opposite of a circular economy, where reuse, repair, and recycling keep materials in use for as long as possible. Each new purchase feeds a system that devours finite resources, generates pollution, and spews greenhouse gases, the driving force behind global warming. The more we buy, the worse climate change gets. What's a feedback loop, and why does it matter for the environment? A feedback loop is a chain reaction where the outcome of a process circles back and influences the original system. These loops can either amplify, intensify, or dampen, reduce the initial effect. When it comes to climate change and environmental damage, positive feedback loops are the most concerning. Instead of stabilizing the system, they accelerate a problem, like a snowball rolling downhill, growing larger and faster as it goes. These loops can push Earth's systems past tipping points, thresholds beyond which changes become irreversible or extremely difficult to stop. Once crossed, they trigger rapid, cascading effects, locking in rising temperatures, ecosystem collapse, or extreme weather patterns. This is why acting on climate change is so urgent. If these feedback loops gain too much momentum, they could lead to runaway environmental damage, leaving us with a planet drastically different and far less hospitable than the one we know today. Learning to build a solar still is a crucial survival skill and provides a practical demonstration of the water cycle. Finding safe drinking water can be extremely difficult in survival scenarios, whether you're stranded in a desert, near a saltwater coast, or in an area with contaminated water sources. A solar still is a simple yet ingenious way to purify undrinkable water, like seawater or muddy pond water, or even extract moisture from the ground or plants. It mimics Earth's natural water cycle through distillation. Water evaporates, leaves impurities behind, condenses, and becomes drinkable. How to build a solar still. Dig a pit. Create a hole in the ground, roughly 1 to 2 feet deep and wide. Place a container. Set a clean cup, bowl, or any watertight container in the center. Add moisture. Optional, but helpful. Surround the container with damp soil, green vegetation, or even urine to increase evaporation. Cover with plastic. Stretch a clear plastic sheet, like a tarp or trash bag, over the pit, sealing the edges tightly with rocks or dirt to trap air inside. Create a drip point. Place a small weight, like a rock, in the center of the plastic, just above the container. This creates a low point for condensation to collect and drip. How it works. Evaporation. Sunlight heats the pit, causing moisture in the soil or plants to evaporate into vapor. Condensation. The vapor rises, hits the cooler plastic sheet, and turns back into liquid droplets. Collection. Droplets slide down the angled plastic and fall into the container as clean, drinkable water. Purification. Salt, bacteria, and other contaminants stay behind, leaving only pure H2O. Key takeaways. Water equals survival. After shelter and injuries, water is your top priority. Humans can survive weeks without food, but only days, or even hours in extreme heat, without water. Science in action. A solar still demonstrates the water cycle and distillation, proving how nature purifies water. This skill isn't just theoretical, it could save your life. Imagine trying to divide a limited resource among many people, only to later realize the original agreement was based on a massive overestimation of how much actually existed. That's essentially the problem with the Colorado River Compact, a pivotal 1922 agreement that still governs water distribution in the Southwest today. The compact divides the Colorado River's water between 7 U.S. states. Upper Basin, Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, Wyoming. Lower Basin, Arizona, California, Nevada. The deal originally allocated 7.5 million acre-feet per year to each basin. Later adjustments gave the lower basin an extra million, and a 1944 treaty reserved 1.5 million acre-feet for Mexico. Along with subsequent laws and court rulings, these agreements formed the law of the river. The framework managing this critical water supply. Why the compact is in crisis today. The compact's outdated math has set up an unsustainable system, one that now forces tough choices about who gets less water in an increasingly dry future. The original mistake. The compact was based on an over-optimistic estimate, 17.5 million acre-feet per year, during an unusually wet period. In reality, the river's long-term flow is much lower. Now, after 20-plus years of drought, or aridification, thanks to climate change, the promised water simply doesn't exist. 40 million people rely on it. The river supplies water to major cities, LA, Phoenix, Las Vegas, and irrigates farmland that grows much of the nation's food. A major cutback would disrupt lives, agriculture, and the economy. Vanishing reservoirs, Lake Mead and Lake Powell, the river's giant water savings accounts, are at record lows. This threatens hydropower, water deliveries, and ecosystems. Big fights over water. With water in short supply and competing legal claims, states, and even groups within them, cities, farmers, Native American tribes, are locked in constant battles over allocation. Renegotiating water rights and deciding who takes cuts is fraught with complexity and political tension. Climate change intensifies the crisis. Climate change acts like a firefighter pouring gasoline on a wildfire. Rising temperatures increase evaporation from reservoirs and reduce snowpack in the mountains, the river's primary water source. As a result, less water flows into the system. Even as hotter, drier conditions drive demand higher. Why the Colorado River Compact matters. Understanding this century-old agreement isn't just about history. It's about grappling with the central challenge of managing scarce water in an arid region facing unprecedented shortages. How the compact is adapted and enforced will shape the future of millions of people and the economy of the American Southwest. Situational awareness is about more than just observing your surroundings. It's understanding what's happening, interpreting its significance, and anticipating what might come next. It's not passive. It's actively processing information to foresee potential challenges. For scientists, Danger Cave in Utah and Leviathan Cave in Nevada are crucial pieces of a vast climatic puzzle. They reveal that the southwestern U.S. has experienced arid periods lasting thousands of years, far beyond what modern society has experienced. Danger Cave, a testament to human resilience. Danger Cave contains an extraordinary collection of artifacts, grinding stones, woven baskets, and tools for hunting small game and processing seeds. These finds prove that humans lived there continuously for roughly 11,000 years, beginning just after the last ice age. Their enduring presence demonstrates how ancient peoples adapted to and thrived in the harsh, dry conditions of the Great Basin for millennia. Leviathan Cave. Unlocking ancient climate secrets. Meanwhile, Leviathan Cave holds stalagmites, rock formations that grow upward from mineral-rich dripping water. These act as ancient climate archives, functioning like natural rain gauges and thermometers. Their chemical composition, particularly oxygen and carbon isotopes, provides precise records of past temperatures and rainfall patterns. Data from Leviathan Cave reveals extended periods of extreme aridity, including a major Middle Holocene dry spell from about 9,850 to 5,310 years before present. During this time, stalagmite growth slowed dramatically, and their isotopic signatures confirmed prolonged heat and drought. These ancient megadroughts were far more severe and longer-lasting than the century-scale droughts seen in modern tree-ring records. Research suggests Leviathan Cave's climate data reflects conditions across the broader Southwest, including the Mojave Desert and southern Great Basin, with major implications for the Colorado River Basin, a critical water source for millions today. The combined message. Danger Cave offers archaeological proof of human resilience, showing how ancient societies survived relentless dryness. Leviathan Cave provides scientific evidence of the duration, intensity, and causes of these droughts, stretching back tens of thousands of years. Together, they underscore a stark reality. Severe, long-term droughts are a defining feature of the Southwest's climate history, a lesson with urgent relevance for the region's future. Before every flight, pilots perform a meticulous pre-flight check, a systematic inspection of the aircraft's condition, systems, paperwork, and their own readiness. The goal is straightforward: identify and resolve potential safety risks before takeoff. This disciplined approach holds surprising relevance today, particularly amid rising eco-anxiety. In fact, a pilot's pre-flight routine closely resembles a powerful mental exercise called the premortem, which could help those overwhelmed by environmental fears. So, what exactly is a premortem? You know how detectives in crime shows conduct a postmortem after a disaster to figure out what went wrong? A premortem flips that idea on its head. Instead of waiting for failure, you imagine your project has already crashed and burnt before you even start, and then work backward to uncover why. It's a proactive way to spot pitfalls before they become real disasters. How premortem works. Picture the disaster. Fast forward to the future where your project has failed spectacularly. Yes, let it be gloriously bad. Brainstorm the why. Why did it fail? Lack of funding? Poor communication? Unexpected obstacles? Dig into every possible reason. Spot the weaknesses. Reverse engineering failure reveals blind spots and risks you missed in the planning phase. Create solutions. Now, tackle those vulnerabilities head-on to bulletproof your actual plan. Why a premortem is a game changer. Combat over-optimism. Our natural, everything will work out, bias makes us ignore red flags. A premortem forces you to confront them. Uncover hidden risks. People often hesitate to voice concerns. Framing it as, what did go wrong, encourages candid, critical thinking. Boost preparedness. By identifying failure points early, you can allocate resources smarter and build contingency plans. Sharpen foresight. It trains you to anticipate challenges, making you more proactive in future projects. Increase success odds. Stress testing your plan against imaginary failures dramatically improves real-world outcomes. The bottom line. A premortem isn't just a planning tool, it's a psychological power move. By simulating failure in advance, you shift from anxiety to action, turning potential disasters into solvable problems. Whether for projects, personal goals, or even big-picture challenges like climate change, it's a way to think ahead, not dread.